May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be to the greater honor and glory of God. Amen. One of the things that in my introverted self that I very much dislike is bargaining, what we would call haggling. I may have told this story before, but before I came here in July of 2005, Amanda, my daughter, had graduated from high school, and we had planned to go on a family road trip. She had got on the computer to a website called Roadside America, which shows you interesting things, the biggest this, the largest that, and interesting things of that nature. And so she had, on a map of the United States, had plotted a route that would go and show us various things. But we never knew on any given day during this road trip where we were going to end up, when we were going to get tired, and so we never made hotel reservations along the way. So here was the routine. So we would roll up to a hotel or a motel, and we were all sleeping in one room, the four of us. And so Lydia would have me go in to the desk and ask what the price was for that room for the night. And so then I would go back out and I would say, well, they want $100 a night. And she would say, well, then go back in and ask them if they'll take 80. And so then I would go back in, and lo and behold, a lot of times they would say, yeah, that's okay. Or they might say, well, we can do 90 or something of that nature. And then I'd have to go back out to Lydia and say, okay, they're okay with that. And I know on one night, we went to a hotel, and they wanted like maybe 125, and this was 20 years ago. So that, that was a lot of money for us. And so I go out and say, they want 125 a night or what. And so she said, oh, we're not doing that. So and then she said, well, see if they'll do 100 a night, or maybe 90 a night. And so I went back in. They said, no, our price is firm. And so then we went to another hotel, which looked a little sketchy. And so I go in, we do this haggling business, and then we get into the room, and it was like, oh no, this isn't working. And so Amanda happened to find French fries underneath the bed. And so then I had to go back and I haggled to get our money back. And then we ended up back at the hotel that we first started. But now, in this day and age, we have these apps, these computer programs and these apps, Trivago, Expedia, hotels.com. You can compare prices and figure out what you're doing. The other thing that we like to do, especially when we're on vacations or have Saturdays off, is go to flea markets. And so kind of the same thing, that if Lydia and I kind of see something that maybe we want for our home, she'll look at the price and say, oh, if it's like $10, she'll say, well, maybe they'll take 8. But she won't go and be the one to say, hey, we're going to take 8. She'll have me go to the front desk and say, hey, we're interested in this. Can you come down on it? Drives me crazy, but I do it, and I know it's good stewardship. Both examples talk about shrewdness and stewardship. In our gospel today, on multiple times, we hear the word shrewd or shrewdness and the word dishonesty. So, and then Jesus, even in the gospel, says the master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. So I got on the computer and I said, hey computer, or Google, what's the difference between the word and the meaning of So just bear with me. So it says dishonesty is the intent to deceive, while shrewdness is the clever, practical application of intelligence to achieve a goal. A person can be shrewd without being dishonest, but dishonesty is often used as a shrewd tactic. The key difference lies in the ethical dimension of the action. And then it kind of splits them up. Dishonesty is a lack of integrity and disposition to lie, cheat, or defraud. It involves intentionally misrepresenting the truth or withholding information to mislead someone. And then it talks about the moral implications. Dishonesty is considered inherently unethical because it erodes trust and can cause harm. However, some ethical viewpoints, like utilitarianism, suggest that a lie could be justified if it minimizes harm or prevents a greater wrong. And it talks about purpose. The primary purpose of dishonesty is typically self-serving, such as avoiding punishment or gaining an unfair advantage. Then under shrewdness, under the definition, it says shrewdness is having or showing sharp, practical, and hard-headed intelligence. A shrewd person has good judgment and is perceptive, often in business and financial matters. And then the moral implications, shrewdness itself is morally neutral and becomes good or bad depending on the intent of the person using it. It is skill that can be used for noble purposes, like making a small salary go a long way, or for less ethical ones. The purpose of shrewdness is to find the most effective way to negate a situation and secure a beneficial outcome. In both of these examples, Jesus isn't praising dishonesty. This seems shocking that Jesus would say, make friends with dishonest people or do things by dishonest manners. But he's not praising dishonesty, he's praising shrewdness. And people who are shrewd, what we would call good stewards. And this is another example, kind of in our collect prayer, of another lesson of Jesus on heavenly concerns versus earthly concerns. Shrewdness and I see shrewdness and stewardship in different people. In a sense of there are people that God has given the gift of managing money. And in the Gospel of Luke, Luke is very much rails against people who have a lot of wealth and a lot of possessions. And he's always talking about give all your possessions away and give alms to the poor and that kind of thing. But he's not, in my view, there are people, like I said, who have the gift of managing money. And when they get money, if they are good people, good Christian people, they will use that money to help other people in good ways. On the other hand, I know personally people who, they get money in their hands and you might as well be putting sand in their hand. It's like a sieve. It just runs right through. And, or they squander it. And so that's kind of where it's going here with what Jesus is trying to say. Jesus' focus is not on how much money or wealth you have, assuming that you got it by you've acquired it honestly, but what you do with what you have. I was thinking also of my mother-in-law, that when the Indiana started having the lottery back in 1989, she was vehemently against. That was evil, it was sinful. But then over time, she started having Lydia's father, her husband, whenever he would go to the grocery store on Saturday mornings, buying 1 or 2 lottery tickets. And I asked her one time, I said, well, why this change in your view of the lottery? And she said, well, somebody's got to win. and maybe rather me win and use it for godly purposes rather than somebody who might win and use it for dishonest purposes. And I think that's a kind of a good example that goes with the gospel today. So Jesus' point is dishonest people can be shrewd for the wrong reasons, and they are good at it. They take earthly wealth and ill-gotten gain and use it for wrong purposes. While what Jesus is saying, Christians need to be shrewd in managing godly things, and what comes to mind is the fruits of the Spirit. They use it for kindness, use it for generosity, use it for, the right things that Christ would want it to be used for. The Bible doesn't say, we often hear this, money is the root of all evil, but that's not what 1 Timothy says. 1 Timothy says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. That money can corrupt us. Money is a neutral thing. We can exchange it, we can get what we want, we can haggle, to get what we want, and so everybody gets what they want. This guy at the flea market, he sells his product, and hopefully he makes a little bit off of it, and we feel like we've gotten a bargain out of it, and we've gotten something that we might prize or treasure. We are freed not to despise wealth nor worship it, but to use it faithfully and generously for God's kingdom. So while I might not be great at or enjoy haggling, that there are times where good stewards